If you think that a 1% interest rate on a 100% loan to value mortgage does not exist, you would be incorrect. That is in the USDA loan program, which is what we are going to talk about today on the inBLOOM podcast. I am your host. I'm Josh Bickford. The inBLOOM podcast is live Monday through Thursday at 9 a.m. Mountain on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and on Facebook. Today is episode number 25, and we're going to talk about assuming USDA mortgages. Be sure to share this with a friend if you get value out of it. Smash the like button, subscribe to the podcast on one of the channels mentioned above. Connect with me on LinkedIn. You'll get alerted every day before we go live, or subscribe on the audio podcast platform of your choice. This podcast is a conversation over coffee on thriving in life and in real estate. And we're talking about the future and what's coming and preparing for it so that when 2025 arrives, we are thriving. We are not participating in recession. So today we're going to talk about assuming USDA mortgages. And USDA mortgage is considered a rural mortgage product. Now, you can look at maps online at this. Rural does not mean middle of nowhere. They're obviously available there, but it's pretty surprising in every city I've ever looked at, honestly, how close to the city you can get these mortgages. And these mortgages are designed for lower income people. They have income limits depending on the area, and they vary from, I don't think it's zip code. I think it's county to county. So you have to qualify based on that. And you got to be able to qualify for the payment and all of that kind of stuff. So these are government mortgages, so they are assumable. What you would be looking for if you have one of these is the term. You'd be looking at your mortgage that you signed, or at the mortgage that the seller signed when they bought the house. And it would say, there's a clause that would say, if you sell or transfer this property to another person, your lender, is that apostrophe, and then there'll be two check boxes below. One of these two lines will be checked. If this one is checked that says, will allow under certain conditions this person to assume this loan on the original terms, that is an assumable mortgage. If it's checked and says will not allow assumption of this loan on the original terms, that is not. It's a government-backed loan, so it should be assumable. However, there are lender overlays that you might have a lender who originated some of these that check that as not assumable. So I would check that box on the mortgage. With assuming a mortgage, USDA is going to be a little bit different. If you're in an area where you've never done one of these before, you're probably not going to help somebody assume one. But if you have helped with these, you probably will help people assume them. You also need to know VA assumption and FHA assumption because people obviously use those mortgages as well in rural areas. But seller is more involved in these. The underwriting process is not underwriting. It is a checking of your ability to repay with USDA, that your income qualifies you for a USDA mortgage. You can't assume one of these if your income is too high. You would have to get a new mortgage. It's going to check your credit history. You're going to deal with overlays there because the credit standards of USDA are not the same at every single lender. They have overlays. Let's see here. USDA has to be owner occupied, which means if someone's looking for investment property and wants to lie to the lender about it, that is mortgage fraud and you will go to jail. Do not do that. I've said that every day with these. Owner occupied, you have to move into the house. There is no commission check that is worth giving up years of your life to prison. There is no payoff. There is no rental income. There is no anything that is a fair trade for prison time. It just isn't. Don't do it. USDA. So you are going to have to, as I said, you're going to want your lender involved in these because the person, you're going to want to know up front, the person is credit worthy, the person qualifies based on income, and the person can afford the payment. USDA notes don't require a down payment. They the mortgage insurance is calculated into the payment based upon the principal balance. So they're a unique product that is designed. If you're somebody who hasn't spent much time in rural America, it really is pretty shocking. If you're only in cities, especially if you're only in cities or in areas that are wealthy. I grew up in Iowa. I grew up in Des Moines, so I was in the city, but I have driven through rural Iowa and rural Missouri and rural Illinois and rural Nebraska and rural Kansas. I have driven through all of those areas a lot. And from when I was a kid to today, it really is shocking. Maybe the best way to say it's the level of poverty that you will see in some of that. A lot of, as we decided we didn't want to make things in this country anymore, a lot of plants and places where we manufactured things that was done rurally, a lot of that's gone. And that, it's in Iowa, we had Maytag. So it's like you have these, huge businesses that just leave. And then all of a sudden there's no jobs for all the people there. So, like when you go up in Pennsylvania and Ohio and Appalachia. Am I saying that? Appalachia? I don't know how you say it, but you can go into some of those areas and you can really see it. So these mortgages are really designed to help people in those areas, but it's not, obviously it'll work, maybe if you're in Dallas, right outside of Atlanta, or you could be not far from Denver or Fort Collins here in Colorado, and you're in an area that qualifies for these. The interesting thing to me this was shared with me. So I am not a USDA mortgage expert. If you deal in this type of mortgage, talk to your people. So one of the things that I had no idea, you can get USDA mortgages from banks and you can get them directly from the source. And when you go directly from the source, they're like 2% cheaper on the interest rate when you originate a new one, which I had no idea. Like, that's pretty wild. So I would ask your people about that and what that is. There is also, I've got my notes here. Effective April 1st, 2023. This was in Iowa. Okay, so your area might be a little bit different, but effective April 1st, 2023, the current interest rate for single family housing direct home loans is 4% if you qualify as low income or very low income. Those calculations are on the USDA website. If you simply, USDA mortgage calculator, USDA income calculation, you can see in your area what those numbers are, what your income would need to be based on the number of people in your house to fall for that. The interest rate can be modified on that product to help people afford the house all the way down to 1%. And they can have up to a 33-year payback period or 38 years if the person is very low income qualified and couldn't afford the 33-year payback. All that to say, they look at your income. Like, this is literally a program to help you afford a house. Like, you can bend the terms of the loan so that you can afford it right here. So if you qualify low enough, like if your income is low enough for your area, and let's say a builder is building in that area, which that is absolutely going on right now, you might be able to help people find a 1% interest rate on a 100% loan to value deal. That's a better deal than you can assume. Like, it just is. But that is, you're going to have to do some digging on your end. Obviously, you're going to have to be familiar with what the incomes are for the area. You're going to have to be familiar with what product is available and how somebody can afford it. You're going to have to work hand in hand with your USDA lender, or go straight to the USDA and talk to somebody there. who can help you with all of this kind of stuff. There should be a USDA office in every state that you could talk to. This is a really good opportunity. The 1% mortgage, or even a 4% mortgage, like honestly, people would be buying at 4% and not worried about assuming at 3.5%. Like let's just say that that's what rates were. People would just be originating new. So I think USDA presents a really good opportunity if you're, kind of in the farther out suburbs of the city that you're in, or if you're in the middle of the country and you deal with these already. Those are worth. Those are definitely worth looking at and understanding more. Get a cup of coffee with your USDA mortgage person. Make sure they know this stuff like the back of their hand. If it's something that they do once in a while, probably not the person, unless they're the only person in your area. You probably want somebody who spends the vast majority of their time on these deals, because there are a lot of them. The number of them is less than FHA and it's less than VA, but there's a lot of deals that come about through this way. So wanted to make you aware of those. It is, let's see here. There's a stakeholder announcement, March 6, 2023. And the headline for those programs says, USDA Rural Development in Iowa highlights increase in single-family housing programs, maximum mortgage limit. So this one, it actually lets you go up to $377,600. So you might say, wait, you have to have low income, and that's why they bend the mortgage. If the house price is too high, they'll bend the mortgage to help you afford it. There's a lot of other parameters with these. I'm not going to go into all of them. Obviously, you got to qualify for them, and you're qualifying on multiple different levels. But if you are somebody who operates in one of these areas, you got to know about it. Implement it into your business. If you can help people who can't find good rentals find a house that they can afford, and you help them do it in an eyes wide open way, you've got a friend for life in that person. That I promise you. So that ends this week of podcasts, where we talked about why somebody would assume. We talked about assuming FHA. We talked about assuming VA. And now we have talked about assuming USDA. If you can qualify for that 4% or moved down to 1%, that's a better deal than assuming mortgages, obviously. So that's something to know about. I was unaware of it until I was telling people about all this assumable stuff, and somebody brought this to me. So I hope you have a fantastic week this week. I hope it's been great so far. I hope that weekend coming just sees you thrilled. Life is good. If you got value out of this podcast, be sure to share it with a friend. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you have not. Make sure you get updates when these come in. Never asked you this. Hit the bell if you're watching on YouTube so you get alerted when we're live, Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. Mountain. The goal here with this podcast and with what we're doing is to help 10,000 real estate agents thrive going into 2025, so that if they're all helping a bunch of people, we're helping 1 million families that think they're beyond it. That's the work we're doing here. That's what we're putting our time into. That's the future that we are looking to build. I want you to know that I appreciate you. I see the best in you. There are people who need you and need you at your best. God bless you. Have a fantastic weekend, and